I never thought there would be a zombie outbreak. Things started to go wrong when I heard a secret in the Rich District. I'm a truck driver, and while delivering goods to the Rich District, I stumbled upon a secret that concerns the fate of mankind. That was extreme. The cars were filled with solar panels, blast doors, and hardened windows, which didn't surprise me enough. The most strange thing is that the sewage purification of the rich customers are near the mountains and rivers. The water is directly from the source of the mountain spring water, through the villa area of the underground automatic water system and then transported, where the water will be cleaner than here. The carriage of the water intake is superfluous. After the delivery, I found that there was another convoy in front of me, and from my previous experience, those vans were carrying a completely different category of things, including daily necessities, and food, and even a load of new furniture. I opened the door, jumped off, with the same master in line behind. The master lit a cigarette, casually chattered up, really rich enough to buy so many things, planning to open a kiosk in the villa area. I was amused by his words, but vaguely feel that there is something wrong. Wanted to chatter a few words, but suddenly a burst of urine. I looked at the unloading speed in front of me, turned his head and patted the master on the shoulder, went to the toilet, kept an eye on it for me, and came back soon. Rich neighborhoods have all the amenities, but they're not for outsiders. I turned left and right, found a public toilet in a corner, and after solving the problem, it was quite a long detour before I found my way back. On the way, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of two men in suits talking about something in the villa garden, looking suspiciously at the loading and unloading trucks. I crept closer, hiding in the dark around the corner, and it was unclear how long it would take the group to follow the antidote. I said, "You two clearly provided us with a safe base. You must not go. You want to build a safe fortress in your own home. This is not a mess. What do you know? Secure base. A billion tickets. Maybe the conditions are bad. How can I live in my own comfortable? No matter how bad he is, he can break through the bulletproof door." At the moment of hearing this word, my cold hair exploded, and the whole person was cold to the fingertips. If I had heard this conversation anywhere else, I would have thought it was nonsense. But now, I am in the city's richest villa district, in the two people who have mastered the most information in the entire society heard this paragraph. Even if it is ridiculous, I have to love listening to them talk about the matter of zombies. My heart is more and more determined. But I did not dare to continue to stay. One is afraid of being found, the other is that I also have to buy myself time. Watching them lay eggs in a big way today, I am afraid that there is not much time. I staggered back and found that my car was already unloading, and I have a cigarette. Feelings of the master patted my shoulder. "Just you are not here. I helped you open a section, this time unloading, thank you." I absent-minded nodded, was about to get on the car, thought or turned to say, "Today's payment, after more to buy things at home, eat and drink, the days behind less to go out, I can receive is these." Again, I am afraid that I will get into trouble after all the goods were unloaded. My mobile phone immediately received the payment. I did not stop for a moment. Zayudu opened the villa area. I calculated the money saved over the years. May overdraft. The loan amount is not much, just 200,000. I scratched my head. 200,000, even just that car of things to buy inconspicuous, live to earn. I thought of a very immoral way. I called the supplier again, told them that there was another customer over here who needed the same thing, and they asked me to come and pick it up as soon as possible, and the bill was hanging over the customer's head, and the supplier damaged the image, and they didn't ask me why, and they just told me to go directly to the shipment, and those people were busy building their own security fortress, and there was an insignificant amount on the bill. look at it for a short time and you won't see the water dog or the solar panel. These things are not only expensive, but also hard to get good ones. First I got on this version of the express train. My money was limited and I had to spend it where I had to. I'm done with the big stuff, so I have to deal with the survival stuff right away. I drove to a large warehouse wholesale supermarket, where the daily necessities and food are full, and the quantity is very good. The most important thing is that it's the only place to drive a truck to buy goods without attracting attention. I found a man worth 10,000 today and told him everything I needed. First of all, of course, is the supplies. Tissues, towels are 30 boxes, water storage, charging treasure, and all kinds of alcohol, disinfection supplies and daily necessities are a lot. When the zombie is really persistent, the normal life is definitely not the real style. There is no need to pay too much attention to supplies, but what really needs to be paid attention to is the water and food that can make people survive. Instant noodles need watering, not only consumes electricity, but also consumes water, which is better than direct cooking rice. To buy less, only 20 boxes of small noodles and market cakes, 50 boxes of canned fruit and canned meat, pick the latest factory time 20 boxes of rice 600 pounds and flour 400 pounds of soybeans, wheat 10 boxes, dried fungus, and dried mushrooms and dried ham. These long storage time each came to 50 pounds of cold beans, dehydrated vegetables, 50 pounds of chocolate ribose to supplement sugar, each wanted 5 boxes of vitamin tablets also came to 2 boxes. I looked down at the list of beer and drinks in the wholesale supermarket and hesitated. My funds are not much, not only to buy my own, but also to take into account the parents' share. Every penny must be spent on the knife edge. Beer, drinks, and snacks are optional items. Should we buy them or not? Standing on the side to help me transfer the small he saw my oil, told me with a smile, these days we engage in wholesale supermarket activities, is not about to spring festival so all 20 cases of beer and drinks are 30% off. 20 cases is not that much. I don't know how long this disaster will last, but people always need some joy in life. I nodded and ordered 5 cases of beer, 5 cases of Cokes, orange juice, and 5 cases of my mom's favorite drinks. Finally, I added a few scattered potato chips, spicy sticks, cookies, and so on, just enough to fill the whole case. I looked at the full cargo box, my heart finally made a conclusion. A happy little brother standing beside me handed me the bill. A total of these added up, after the event during the 10% discount is 47,000, I pay while heartache, calculate after a C purchase before buying other things. After leaving the wholesale supermarket, I went to the largest pharmacy in the neighborhood, first bought some of my parents' common drugs and anti-inflammatory drugs, cold medicines, cough manufacturers, as well as the diarrhea and sales aid flower shop, the most important iodine, bandages, and the counter of the pain shop will have vitamins and calcium. No matter the major illness and minor illness cannot go out in the future, can only rely on some medicine to lose rice. Basic food and survival supplies have been purchased, and the next step is to survive the end times. You know, in that case, the human heart is more terrible than anything. I do not harm others, naturally cannot let others harm me. I drove to the face of a specializing in hardware supplies, before I gave the owner of the store to send the old, is a intersection, usually others difficult to buy things I can buy very smoothly. I told my boss that I was not going to be a truck driver after the next year, and I contracted a gift, especially with bald man. The boss happily patted me on the shoulder to introduce me to a power saw. I hold the saw, heavy, sharp blade. Once opened, it will become my best self-defense tool in the last days. I asked for 2 electric saws. In addition, I told the boss that he had poachers and wild boars in the woods, bought 30 traps, screws, and electric drills, and other decoration equipment are also bought a lot. When the home needs a big transformation, these are essential. Real name registration after the payment to buy. The boss sent me some nails and steel wire. I thanked my boss, loaded up and left immediately. The destination was my hometown, the country where my parents now live. No place in the back room of the house is perfectly safe, but it must be right to go somewhere less crowded. My hometown is in the countryside, the mountains are sparsely populated, and backed by mountains. Each family has its own experience, and the nearest neighbor is at least 100 meters away. There are books around the house, and bamboo forest cover is simply the best refuge. I drove the truck into our front yard. My parents immediately came to the front door. I stopped the truck safely and jumped out of the car to hug them. To this moment, when I saw them, I was really relieved and shaking. My parents thought that I had suffered some grievance outside, and panicked and comforted me. When I had calmed down, I sat down with them by the hand and told them everything in detail. My parents, who had received little education and had never had children like zombies in their world, looked at each other, and although it was difficult for them to understand what I was saying, even if they did not understand, my mother went through the closet and found the family passbook and handed it to me. I don't know about your dad either, but we've been saving up for you all these years, and tomorrow your dad's gonna walk you down the street and buy you anything. I held it, nodded heavily, and I unloaded all the things in the carriage with my father, for nearly 4 hours, and my tired body was soaked with sweat. The biggest advantage of self-built double springs in the countryside is that there is more space. Except for my bedroom, all the rooms on the second floor were empty, and there were usually only a few things stacked up, and now it was just enough to fit all the rooms I had acquired so far. When unloading with my mother, I asked my mother to first put the water storage buckets into a separate room, connected a pipe from the first floor to the water storage room on the second floor, and I filled all the buckets that were half high for each person with water. When the water intake was brought back tomorrow, all the water could be turned into drinking water, and there was no need to buy mineral water separately. After unloading the goods, I began to look around the house. There was a bamboo forest in the backyard, which was just enough to block the view of others. Under the fence was a chicken shortage, which could provide eggs and chicken for follow-up. In front of the machine, next to another flower out of a piece of land, is a small garden, varieties of not many. Most of our crops are in the field, here only some onions and garlic and other small things. My father took a handful of chickens and raised them all in the abandoned house, which was more secluded and soundproofed, while the empty water was used to expand the garden. Parents are hard-working farmers. The seeds at home are not only rich in variety, but also the highest vitality, fully able to meet the needs of the future cutting vegetables. With these, safety must also be strengthened. It is a sin to be round. If others know that we have so many things, they will not pounce on us and tear us apart. Dad and I are planning a perimeter. It is connected to the power grid to prevent people from climbing over the wall, and then the reinforcement materials previously set in the back to strengthen the windows and the door of the house, all replaced with the same explosion-proof materials of the rich street boss, and finally laid a layer of trapping traps in front of the door, covered with gray head. Calculated the rest of the money, my parents' bank book covered. These expenses are completely no problem. I slept restlessly that night, tossing and turning in my mind about whether there was anything I had neglected to buy. The next day, staring at the dark circles under the eyes, only to find that Mom and Dad are also very anxious. After a simple breakfast, my father and I drove out to find those Settwater dogs, solar panels and security doors to return. The real atmosphere of the car is very solemn. Looking at the city is still trapped. I suddenly some doubt myself, whether I heard wrong, or it is just a rumor. My father turned to look at me, obviously knowing that I was preoccupied. He smiled, as if to adjust the atmosphere, and said, "There is money, we have. There is nothing left to buy. Swerve to the supermarket to get some hair dye for the festival," and my car almost skidded. Father Tone pretended to be relaxed. "The end of the world day also have to live. Ah, I give you a long time no H oil, this white hair are fast stop. Buy it, buy. Your mother is also happy, since the supermarket, that also buy more other it. Dad is right, the day is to live. I already know these news in advance of others, then I will take advantage of the advantage, want to say some days. I think it is fake money to buy a lot of fresh and expensive ingredients, usually reluctant to buy cherries and strawberries. There are a lot of seafood, these food cannot eat for too long. I did not plan to eat, purely to enjoy these 2 days. The bag is full of food after the low expensive to give the ingredients to my mother with a smile. My father and I go to install solar panels. How to enter the dog? These are good to install, but the tray reinforcement material is very headache. Medicine will make a lot of noise. Too serious. I am responsible for the installation of the fence. My father is responsible for the final door and power grid. Even after 2 days, the neighbor finally couldn't bear it, grabbed a melon seed, and came to our construction site while eating. "Yo, what is this?" I raised my head sweating. Uncle had long thought of a good word to deal with. Find the object. This New Year's Day home to make a little decoration at home, or bring the object back home tattered impolite. The adjacent meridian means that the gossip forest will be turned away, and by the time the fence and door of our home have been knocked around the wire tile, it has been 5 days later. Before our family was eating, full of rich dishes, and then to do the formal completion of the defense project in front of the TV broadcast holding the Lotus car in the coastal city. The accident scene was very tragic, crying and blood everywhere. My mom frowns at the scene and wonders what an accident this is. But I saw a flash of horror in my eyes. The face of the man lying in the car was white and his body was extremely twisted. At that time, I shook my head and was a little nervous, so I put down my dishes and chopsticks directly, and went to check again whether all the security lines were fully installed. My dad saw my anxiety and came out and squeezed my shoulders. "We have beaten the others by several streets, and one way or another our family will survive this disaster." I nodded, hoping so. Approaching the new year, the village gradually became lively, and all the people who lived out to work came back. I took advantage of the upsurge of everyone to buy New Year goods, and bought a lot of things with them. Looking at the street of the market and all kinds of firecrackers and fireworks, I have a new idea in my heart. I packed up all the fireworks from one of the stalls, bought them home and piled them in the warehouse, so it's better to check for any missing pieces than it is then. The first day of the new year was normal. Our family had the richest New Year's Eve dinner in history, and the second day of the new year was normal, but only our family did not go out to visit relatives. It was on the morning news the third day. The street killings in several places stood out in the joyous news of the new year. Our family sat nervously in front of the TV, watching the armed forces, looking at the passers-by who were losing their minds, looking at the anesthesia wall, and those people were just like the people I saw in the last car accident. Their eyes were spitting out, their mouths were opening new pots and throwing themselves at the passers-by. My father looked very sad, turned off the TV, got up and walked to the door, but I threw myself at the monster. Then I went to the first net. The zombies really broke out. First a certain city was declared to be accepted by the hospital, and all the patients were affected by the bites. then the infection of medical staff and the collapse of the medical system, and then the wounding and grieving people everywhere in the streets and alleys. Weibo News was soon filled with the sudden sound of viral discussion, and everyone jumped from the atmosphere of the new year to the despair of the end of the world. Experts have started countless symposia, telling everyone not to panic, not to chaos. The scientific research team has been studying the virus at home, calling on everyone not to go out during this time, reduce unnecessary actions, let alone cross-provincial action, but it is too late. Perhaps the virus has already spread everywhere. The Spring Festival rush, the largest human migration activities in the country, hundreds of millions of people have passed by. The virus is spreading at an invisible and terrifying speed, and this is just the moment of its outbreak. I took advantage of the absence of power off the internet, all the charging treasure is full of electricity, and downloaded a large number of ebooks and movies and TV series, and even a lot of brain standalone games. The days ahead are so long, I just need to find something to pass the time. When the TV series was not downloaded, a call came from outside the house. His second uncle, are you at home? Open the door. We'll crash at your place for a few days. I looked out of the second floor window and saw a distant relative who lived not far from us. My father and I looked for a moment and then went to open the door. I went downstairs and grabbed my dad's hand. Dad, don't open the door.